3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right, welcome to Roots of Reality. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of world records in athletics. So for thousands of years in human societies, athletic performances have been highly valued. As a result, every year in the modern era, world athletes from around the globe are attempting to break world records. In turn, this has resulted in many world records only lasting a few years before they are once again broken, just showing how much we continue as a species to get better due to things like better training, equipment, and also just the fact that we have more and more talented athletes participating in sports. So one of the things I really want to cover in this episode are just the different world records that have been set by athletes historically. When it comes to different sports, for example, in the long jump, the men's record was set in 1991 by American Mike Powell, who jumped 8.95 meters, and the women's world record was set in 1988 by the Soviet long jumper Galina Chistayakova, who jumped 7.52 meters. Next, there is the 100-meter dash. The men's world record was set by Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt in 2009 with a record time of 9.58 seconds, and the women's world record was set by American sprinter Florence Griffith Joyner in 1988 with a time of 10.49 seconds. Now turning towards swimming, in the 1500-meter freestyle, the men's record was set by Chinese swimmer Sun Yang in 2012 with a time of 14 minutes and 31 seconds. And in 2018, the women's record was set by American Katie Ledecky with a time of 15 minutes and 20 seconds. Finally, in the world of weightlifting, when it comes to the raw deadlift, in 2022, the men's record was set by American Danny Grigsby, who lifted 1,074 pounds, and the women's world record was set in 2023 by American Tamara Walcott, who lifted 639 pounds. So when thinking about these athletic world records that have been set today, there are a few takeaways. First of all, as I alluded to earlier, records are being broken all the time. So when you have a record that's gone on since the 90s or 80s, that's pretty rare. So you must have had a pretty incredible performance, because with many events, we have records being broken every year, all the time. Secondly, though, when it comes to human biology, these records also just show that the best male athletes always outperform their female peers, which is obviously due to men just being built differently and on average having more athletic ability than women and more strength. Because whether you are looking at running or swimming times, men are always finishing with significantly better times when it comes to world records or professional level events. In lifting, for example, men are lifting way more than women. I mean, when you look at the raw deadlift record that I mentioned just a few moments ago, the male record is 435 pounds more than the women's record when it comes to that. And that's not a little amount. So these world records by men and women are really impressive from a physical standpoint, but they also teach us a lot about biology and the difference between men and women in a world where today often we are getting these debates about trans athletes in sport and what should trans athletes be able to do when competing in competitions. However, I think when we think about world record times and how men and women do when competing in the same sports, these things probably should give people some perspective, because regardless of what sex an athlete identifies as, what you would choose to identify as does not change your biological structure of your body. And the advantages that men have from a strength and athletic standpoint don't just disappear. So if you are a trans woman, for example, who is trying to compete against other women, you're going to have advantages as a result of being biologically male. So these are conversations that have been highly politicized within the last few years. It's kind of gone out of control, but science doesn't really change. We can't ignore those differences, especially when it comes to the safety of not only female athletes, but also, the integrity of their sports. If we're not paying attention to the differences between men and women and their physical abilities, then, we're really just putting our heads in the sand and kind of ignoring reality. So perhaps what would be best would be to focus more on, letting trans athletes start to have their own trans records, which would allow them to, not have to worry about backlash, but also would allow for, people who are trans to compete against each other. I mean, surely there's going to be more and more trans athletes over time, but grouping trans athletes into the female category obviously is only going to become a messier and messier situation as more trans athletes enter women's sports. And that's just going to have increasing backlash, especially as trans athletes break more female records over time. So everyone should be encouraged to partake in sports, regardless of how they identify themselves or their biological sex. But we want it to be fair, and we want it to be fair. There's a reason why men and women's sports are separate. So hopefully society will be able to be a little bit more calm about how we discuss these things and make the right decisions going forward that allows everyone to excel in whatever sport they want to be in without harming others in the process. So with that, as always, remember, billions of years led to you. So make the most of it.